Okay, this next topic we have is on systems of equations. We have two different methods that we can use to solve systems. The first one we're going to look at is called the substitution method. What makes a substitution method useful in this case is we have one equation written in terms of another. Since y is equal to 2x minus 4, I could take the 2x minus 4 and replace the y in the equation above. Notice when I replaced the 2x minus 4 in for y, I did so with parentheses. That's really important, particularly when you have a negative out in front. So now we're going to solve for x as if it was any other kind of equation. So we'll distribute through. Just be careful with your algebra. So we have 2x minus 6 plus 12 equals 8. Combine like terms. Negative 4x plus 12 equals 8. Subtract 12 from both sides. I get negative 4x is equal to negative 4. Therefore, x equals 1. Now to find y, it's actually pretty easy to find y. I just have to plug in for x back in the original equation I used in my substitution. So y is equal to 2 times 1 minus 4. So y is equal to negative 2. Now what this just showed you is these are equations of lines. So if I was to graph both these lines, you would have this one right here is y equals 2x minus 4, the one that's in blue. The other one was the 2x minus 3y equals 8. Then notice the point of intersection right here is the point 1, negative 2. That is the same as the solution. So you will often see the solution to a system written as an ordered pair. That way we know it's the intersection of two lines. Okay, substitution method is usually pretty simple to do. You just have to have one equation in terms of another. You can convert other equations and use substitution method, but then you'd have to solve for one of the variables. The other method is called the elimination method. So the idea of elimination is to multiply an equation so that when you add the two equations together, one of the terms will add to 0. So if I look at right here, I've got 4y and I've got 2y. If I take this equation down here and multiply it by negative 2, now I'm choosing negative 2 so that when I multiply it in, I'll get a negative 4y. And when I add it to the 4y, they'll cancel out. So I'm eliminating the y. That's why it's called the elimination method. So adding these two equations together, I get negative 7x. The 4y minus 4y, that adds to 0. Then 13 minus 6 will equal 7. Solving for x, I get x equals negative 1. Now, to find the y value, we have to plug back into one of our two original equations. Well, I could plug it into the top equation, and I get negative 3 plus 4y equals 13. When I solve this, I'll get y equals 4. Or I could have plugged it into the bottom equation, did 5 times negative 1 plus 2y equals 3. I get negative 5 plus 2y equals 3. Therefore, 2y equals 8, and y equals 4. Now, the advantage of what I just did right here, it acted as a check. If I got the same answer plugging into both equations, then I did the problem correctly. So that's one thing that does help out. You can use that as a check. You just have to plug into one of the two. So my final answer right here would be the point negative 1, 4. That's where those two lines would intersect. Okay, this one required only multiplying by one term. So all I had to do is multiply the bottom equation by negative 2. Sometimes you're going to need to multiply both equations. So while it's possible to do this problem using like substitution, it'd be very difficult. And it is possible to multiply just one equation to be able to get them to match. This one is not as easy to see. Well, I do have a negative in front of the y on the top term and a positive on the bottom one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both these equations so that I get a common term. So one way to do that is to take the 4 that's here and multiply the top equation by 4. Because the y's are opposite signs, I can multiply by positive numbers. And I'll take 3 and multiply the bottom equation. This way, when I multiply them together, I'll get 12y and 12y with one of them negative. So I get 20x minus 12y, 4 times 2 is 8, and make sure you remember to multiply what's on the other side of the equal sign, because that's probably the most common mistake that students make. They forget to multiply this like this 2 by 4. Then multiplying by 3, we've got 6x plus 12y equals negative 60. Now when I add these two equations together, I get 26x, negative 12y plus 12y equals 0. 8 minus 62, 8 minus 60 gives me negative 52. And solving for x, I get negative 2. Now I can plug back into either equation. I think the bottom one might be a little bit easier. So I'll plug in negative 2. I get negative 4 plus 4y equals negative 20. 4y equals negative 16. So y equals negative 4. This gives me my final answer that x equals negative 2 and y equals negative 4. Or I can basically write it as a coordinate pair as shown.